Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Whiteside, licensed clinical social worker with Terrebonne Home Care. Thank you so much for joining us. However you may be joining us, we appreciate it. And we're always glad to get updates about the people who are working out there very diligently, very hard to keep us safe. Welcome back to the program from Troop C, Trooper Ross Brennan. Troop, thanks for being here.
Yes, sir. Always a pleasure.
Very appreciate that. You know, one of those things that we always like to think about is the holiday seasons, and it's one of those things you and I talk about, getting concerned about when holidays come up, how people are doing. We did fairly well so far through the holiday.
Yeah, Memorial is a major travel holiday, especially across the nation. We weren't without tragedy down here, but, for the most part, sometimes we have more than just what we had. So we did have one fatal crash. It was Saturday. Basically a single vehicle, single occupant. Driver went off the road and overturned his vehicle, and he wasn't restrained during that crash. And of course, he did suffer fatal injuries. But that was the only major crash that we did have down here for the Memorial holiday, which is better than sometimes.
Right. And, we talk about it all the time. If people don't always think it matters that much, but being restrained in a vehicle dramatically increases your chance of surviving some of these crashes.
Yeah, and not just surviving, reducing serious injury, because if you're unrestrained, you might survive that crash, but you might look at being paralyzed now, and then you have to rely on other people to take care of you, maybe have to go into assisted living. So there's all these different things that could be avoided by just buckling up. Taking 3 seconds to put that seatbelt on could make the world of a difference in a crash.
So very important. And now it's that time of year. Memorial Day also reminds us that the kids are getting out of school and things are changing. We're in that transition time. We know that hurricane season's starting, but we also know Memorial Day means that we're going to see and have kids out there out of school, and we need to be aware of that and some of the safety needs for them.
Yeah, talking about the hurricane, a lot of the parents, they didn't realize that they had school today because typically the schools would be already out for Memorial Day.
Right.
But like you said, with school coming to an end, there's going to be more teenagers and stuff on the road. So I just wanted to kind of remind some parents of some of the guidelines that the state has as far as teen drivers on the roadway. In fact, actually, May 31st is Teen Driving Safety Day.
Okay.
So it's all kind of working out together.
Right.
But your first year of driving, you're actually 3 times more likely to get involved in a crash than any other year of your life. And it's just all about inexperience, right? Same thing about musical instrument or sports. The first time you started doing that, you weren't that great at it. Same thing goes with driving. The more time you get behind the wheel, the more better you get at it, right? So whenever you're under 18 years old, 17 and below, you can't use any cell phone at all. That's even using hands-free inside the car, the Bluetooth, or the speakerphone. A lot of people have that misconception that they can use that. But if you're under 17, you can't use that, all right? And it's all about reducing distractions, because even just talking on the cell phone, having that conversation, you think about what that person's saying, you think about how you're going to reply. You can easily get distracted just by doing that. That's why school zones are hands-free for everybody, because in school zone, we definitely want everybody to pay attention. Another thing, too, is that whenever you're 16 years old in Louisiana, you are kind of limited about what time you can travel and also how many people you can have inside the vehicle. So if you are 16 years old, between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m., you can only travel on our roadways with somebody who's 21 years old, who's licensed, or a sibling who's 18 that is also licensed. So if you're going to be traveling between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m., you definitely have to make sure you have some type of guardian inside the vehicle. A lot of times, too, with kids, they go hang out at people's houses. They might have friends inside the vehicle. But between the hours of 6 p.m. and 5 a.m., if they're going to transport somebody inside the vehicle who is not an immediate family member, they need somebody who's 21 years old, who's licensed to ride in the vehicle with them.
And that's 6 p.m. to 5 a.m.
Yeah, and that's 6 p.m.
That's early.
Yeah, that is early. So, that, like I said, they're going to transport somebody who's not an immediate family member, like their friends or whatnot. They're going to have to make sure that at least 21 years old. All right. The other stipulation was if they're traveling by themselves, they need somebody who's at least 21 or a sibling who's 18. But they're going to travel with friends. They have to. It's only a 21-year-old inside the vehicle.
And again, they're reasons why that's set up that way. They're reasons why we know that they're 3 times more likely in that first year to get into accidents. And so that's why some of these rules are in place.
Yeah, and it's all just reduced distractions. The less amount of people you have inside the vehicle, the more chances people can get easily distracted. We know kids, they're playing with the playlists on the music or playing the TikTok videos or Snap, whatever. There's always something going on inside the vehicle, people clowning around. So it's just help reduce those distractions, help people make a better driver, hopefully get them to their destinations a lot safer.
And I like the whole contention that if it's a sibling, it can be 18. It's 2 family members, and that way that mother and father know that they're with someone who's at least several years older.
Yeah, and it has to be
18
licensed,
or older.
right? And it's all every whether it's 21 or 18, it has to be licensed. Another thing too is that whenever you're driving inside the vehicle as a person who's 16 and below, you have to make sure that everybody else inside the vehicle is also properly restrained. Part of that graduated driver's license that Louisiana has, you have to make sure that everybody's buckled up inside the vehicle. If you violate that, you can actually prolong you getting your full license whenever you reach 17. It can limit you moving on to that next step. And the same thing goes with curfew violations. I know we talked about the different time frames as far as the state law, but there's no state law across the board as far as curfews. Different parish ordinances have different time frames. So you definitely want to make sure that you know what's in your parish that you live in, what that time frame is for that juvenile to be out after dark.
And especially with all of our parishes, but right up next to each other, if it's different for Terrebonne versus
Yeah.
the Foos, if it's different for Terrebonne versus St. Mary, they need to know that.
Yeah. And another thing too is that a lot of times kids go out to house parties too over the summer. Have that conversation with your child. If they are going to go out and drink at all, or maybe consume some type of substance that causes impairment, have that designated ride home. You know, they might call you in the middle of the night to come get them. That's not the time to get mad at them, because we don't want them to be afraid to call you. You can deal with it next morning once everything kind of settles down. But in that moment, we don't want an impaired driver driving on the roadway. We want a sober driver to come get them home safely. It's better for that to happen than them be afraid of getting in trouble and taking that risk and getting on the roadway and either seriously hurting or killing themselves or another innocent driver on the roads.
Yeah, and those are just some wonderful ideas. And so, Trooper, we always appreciate that y'all spend so much time and energy focused on what we need to do to make sure that our kids are safe. So we appreciate that. We thank you for your presence, and hopefully we get to our next holiday without any fatalities at all. It's always the goal, right?
Yes, sir, that's always a goal.
We appreciate it. Thanks again for your time.
Yep.
And again, we thank Trooper Ross here, letting us know what is and what not to do for our kids. So thank you so much for joining us. Don't go anywhere. A lot more Bayou Time when we continue.